Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson, and today I'm bringing you the Executive Chairman of Resource Base. His name is Shannon Green, and he is the Executive Chairman. Now, this is an IPO, ladies and gentlemen, so it's all about what they're doing, why they're doing it, who they are. Shannon Green, welcome to Small Caps. Good to see you.
Kerry, good afternoon. Fantastic to be here, and thank you for taking time to hear our story.
Well, taking time to hear the story, I think it's a great story. Let's start off with, first of all, this was an asset that was owned by Navarre Minerals, and they're going to become a substantial shareholder. What I'd love to hear about is, let's just explain to our listeners, Resource Base. It's going to be recapitalized. You're doing a listing probably late June, early July. Who are Resource Base?
Yeah, sure. Look, Resource Base historically owned the Brullah King gold operation in New South Wales. So they operated that mine and processed the ore at that site. That went into closure and care and maintenance. While the existing board looked for other opportunities, I think they were trying to see if they couldn't do some central treatment and toll treating and those types of things. They even looked at a bit of a commodity switch. Maybe they could tweak the plant. Those things never really sort of played out. Last May, I was approached by one of the major shareholders to see if I could join the board and see if I couldn't do something with the company. So myself and Jamie Myers joined. Basically, 1st of June, we were appointed to the board. I was appointed as Executive Chairman. Jamie came on as non-executive. We held one of the previous directors on the board. The other two stepped down. We undertook a review of the company. The company had debt. The operation had some pretty serious liabilities that were on the horizon and coming quick. The regulators were demanding certain things start to happen in terms of site closure. So it was a pretty easy decision to move towards divesting that asset, go on the hunt for a new asset. By then, we'd already been in long-term suspension. We're heading for delisting. We knew we wouldn't make the cutoff on delisting. There just wasn't enough time. So the company went into delisting. Once you've been in long-term suspension, there's very little chance of ever getting backdoor approval and those types of things. There's always going to be, full re-compliance. We understood that. So we mapped out that pathway. Obviously, going through a full re-compliance and a full recapitalisation and coming back at 20 cents, you have to have an asset of pretty serious merit. You can't come back through an IPO with assets.
But Shannon, did you have that asset because you said it was May last year, so it's almost 12 months.
Yep.
At the time that you said, because you've done this before, you've taken companies that have had their challenges and you've done amazing work with them in the past, I think alongside Jamie, from what I can ascertain. So you're a good team to work together. You've done it before. Why Resource Base? And did you immediately know that this asset that Navarre had could be a potential for Resource Base?
No, look, it certainly, I guess the asset itself wasn't on our radar.
Okay.
But copper gold assets were absolutely at our forefront. Now we have three favourite commodities that we like to try and hunt for: copper, gold, nickel. We like the outlook of all of those. And so we were always on the hunt for that. So we had, we were out looking for those commodity streams. We wanted to keep RBX in Australia if we could. So we were looking very, very closely within Australia. We did look at some assets offshore, but ultimately we were introduced to Navarre via one of our contacts in the network that, understood what we were looking for, understood that maybe Navarre, are looking to move the asset and shift into a pure gold focus. So thought there could be, an opportunity there. So we were introduced, to Navarre that way and, entered, discussions late in the year in 2020. On top of that, we were trying to divest the Brullah King asset. It was a difficult asset to to divest, had lots of problems, and we didn't reach our full sales aspirations on that. But the key issue was that we got the liabilities out of the company.
So all liabilities out of the company. The
Absolutely.
focus is now on this asset, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is in Victoria. And most of you will know I love Victoria. It is really coming back strongly at the moment. And you know what, Shannon? I think it's not that Navarre didn't want it. It was just their focus was on some of their other projects, and they didn't want to see this one, I guess, unloved.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, from the beginning, they made it very, very clear in the beginning. They weren't just going to give it to anyone. They weren't looking for a clean exit. They wanted to retain a stake. They were happy to do that as script, but only with a company that they trusted.
Okay.
And that took some time to build up that trust with them, and get them to understand what our strategy was. What were we going to do with the asset when we go live?
Let's just talk about that. What are you going to do with the asset when you go live? Because it's coming up. The IPO is open, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're interested, you need to go to the website and download the prospectus, because at the end of the day, if you want to be part of Resource Base, which quite frankly, this is an asset that I know, Shannon, you're pretty excited about. We'll get into that in a minute. But the way people need to find out more about it is they go to resourcebase.com.au and download that prospectus. Is that correct?
100%. Yep.
Good.
Go to our new website that's up and running. It's a really good website. They've done an amazing job on that. There's a lot of good information on there, information about the company and who we are and the board and our experience. The links to the prospectus and to the offer are now up and running and live.
Okay, and it's not going to be up there for long. So let's talk right now about the Black Range project, which is the project that Navarre will still be a substantial holder in. Why do you like this asset so much? Because you've looked at a lot, not just here in Australia. But Australia's a great jurisdiction. And as I said before, I love Victoria. Why this asset? What's got you so hot under the collar, Shannon?
Yeah, look, I mean, the more and more we spoke to people that are on the ground in Victoria, the more and more feedback we're getting that, Vic is really, really open to business, and explorers and miners were doing really, really well. So we thought, that's great. Good first tick. Staveley Arc, is just becoming, a very, very well-known, prominent. It's connected to the Rosebery Arc in Tasmania. Once upon a time, they were one of the same. So a number of mining operations, through Tasmania on the same. So Staveley Arc, very prominent. Copper, we love copper. The outlook for copper is, I just think is, unlimited. I truly do. And it's driven by fundamentals, and the supply demand gaps are just opening wider and wider. And, we're really, really excited about where we think that market's going to go. Fantastic jurisdiction. The project's had previous work on it. Now, where we see the benefit and the opportunity to that is it's had some work over a number of years. It's had some drilling in a couple of locations, Eclipse in particular. And what we saw with that work had been done previously, because it had been done over a number of years and different programs and different geologists involved and so forth. We see that wasn't really necessarily all contiguously, pulled together, and perhaps was done in a little bit of isolation of each other. What it showed was absolute proof of concept that, we strongly believe there's a VMS system sitting within that tenement area. And, we believe the drilling really showed that. And that's a big part of what we're really excited about. We get to go on the ground, significant body of geological data and knowledge. Our independent expert, Mark Gifford's done a huge amount of work over a fair period of time in really pulling all of that existing knowledge and data together into a very succinct database and so forth. So that, when we start, we're starting with a pretty good body of knowledge.
Well, let's talk about when you start, because as I said before, this is an IPO. And as I said before, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to go on about it, but you've got to download the prospectus if you want to be involved. You're looking to raise about 5 million at 20 cents a share. What are you going to be doing once you are back up and running? You've got the funds in the bank. If I put my hard-earned money into Resource Base, where are you going to spend it?
Yep, 100%. Look, straight out of the blocks, we'll be doing some early geological on-ground works. And really that's about getting some boots on the ground and really closing a couple of the gaps, getting our calibration of our knowledge right, you know, the data versus the on ground and so forth. There'll be some trench work, sampling work, that type of work. Planning a very big geophysical survey program across a significant piece of the tenement. That's a key piece of early work. The geologist, I mean, I'm a non-geologist, I'm not a geologist. I probably know that. I'm not a geologist. But you know, our independent expert tells me that the geophysics survey is going to be a really, really important part of our early steps. We'll be pulling all of that together with the previous data, which will then establish our initial drill program targeting, and then we'll be in drilling late this year. In parallel to that, given the amount of data that we're inheriting, we've already been able to ascertain that we will be able to publish our initial inferred JORC compliant resource from the existing data set. So one of the early pieces of work we'll be doing is we'll have the geologists modelling that and building that and releasing that. So inside the first 6 months of life of going live, we'll be out with our first inferred JORC compliant resource. One of the things we loved about this project was that there's not many projects you can walk into and inside 6 months be releasing your first JORC compliant resource. That's a really important piece, and that will tell us a lot about that particular part of the project area. And remembering we've got a huge runway on this project. We've got 4 kilometres between the two areas that were drilled. Both those areas showed proof of concept of VHMS, and then we've got another sort of 100 odd k's of ground that really is open.
It's never seen a drill bit.
No, that's right. So it's
Is this Shannon? Is this deep undercover, or what are we looking at? I mean, you've got some data out there. What can you tell us about what you've seen so far?
It's fair to say that the main VMS itself is certainly undercover, absolutely. But there has been some of the drilling has found some much more shallow mineralisation, which is all the precursor mineralisation and indicators of a more significant VMS system. So we've certainly seen some at shallower levels that tell us a lot more about what we think is going on at depth.
Okay, we don't have a lot of time left. What I want to ask you is this. First of all, Navarre will be a substantial shareholder. What do they like to, if they got somebody on the board, and what do they like to work with? Are they being very supportive?
Oh, they've been absolutely brilliant. And they're, so they have a director joining us day one, Paul Hissey. He's a geologist, but he's actually Navarre's chief financial officer. So he'll be joining the board. He's been absolutely fantastic. So I've been fully engaged through this process. Been very, very good. And we see them, being part of our board. That's something that we welcomed. Often in the junior space, when you're trying to do transactions and vendors are pushing for board seats, often there's a lot of pushback for different reasons. In this particular case, we saw nothing but advantages and benefits to Navarre coming on board. For one, first and foremost, what does that tell a potential investor? Navarre weren't just trying to, exit the project. They want to be part of it. They're taking a stake in our company, and they're actually putting a member on our board. So,
how much of a stake of the company will they have?
Somewhere around the 19%
mark
when we go live. So a reasonable stake. That's a step one. Obviously, there's performance milestones through the years. Provided things go as successfully as we hope. So, when we come up with larger resources and definitive level studies and things like that, there's some performance milestones around that. So, and they're operating in the region as well. So we hope to, tap into some of their knowledge base about, operating in the region and, good service providers, all of those types of things, and learn some lessons. There's nothing worse than reinventing mistakes made, in the past. So wherever we can learn and avoid following in footsteps of making mistakes, we will. So, we really, really see, nothing but upside and benefit to Navarre joining our board. Okay.
I've got 2 last questions. Then I'm going to ask you why you think investors need to get involved. First one is this a pure copper play, or is it copper gold, zinc, copper gold? What is it? do you think?
Copper, gold, zinc. Yeah. So it's, VMS. So yeah, that's what we're saying. When you look at the previous historic drilling, you're seeing copper, gold, zinc in that. Yeah, absolutely. So,
and as you said before, the demands for copper are going to be pretty high. I'm like you. I'm a bit bullish on copper at the moment. All right, Shannon, why should investors be sitting up, downloading that prospectus right now and getting involved? Because I think you're only open for about 3 to 4 weeks. So it's not a lot of time for people to get involved. Why do you think, like if you were an investor, like I'm an investor, why would you sit here and say, listen, guys, this is why resource base is completely different?
100%. And I think we've covered a little bit of that with Navarre taking a stake in our company and a board member joining and the knowledge base that we get with that. That's one dimension. Another dimension, the existing RBX board. It's a new board. So the old board's all completely gone. It's a new board. So Jamie and I joined last June. John Lewis joined last sort of October, around there. We're individually and independent of each other seasoned campaigners. We've all, Jamie in his world of being a corporate advisor, John Lewis, seasoned chief financial officer, company secretary, etc. He's been involved in projects all over the world, so he really understands. And myself, this is the third company that I've sort of reconstructed, recapitalised in the last couple of years. And I'm a mine builder. That's what I do. I've built mines through the Pilbara, through, out the back of Southern Cross, built iron ore mines, gold mines, developed mines through Africa, worked up in the Arctic Circle on expanding operations up there. So, building mines, operating mines is in my blood. So we know what we're doing. And, that's first and foremost the most important thing. The best asset in the world, but you've got to have a team that knows what to do with that asset. And, our board absolutely does. And as we move forward, we're appointing, the right service providers and other people to assist with driving the project forward. So that makes it a very compelling case. And the project itself is just a cracker. It's got enough work to really help us come on the ground, be calibrated and get going very, very quickly. And, if there's a large-scale VMS type system there, primary copper, the sky's the limit.
Wow. Shannon, the builder Green. It's going to be exciting times for you. I'm going to look forward to seeing how you go and coming back and having a chat with you in a few months once you're back on the boards and back drilling this potential discovery area in Victoria. Shannon, thanks for joining us on Small Caps today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kerry. It's been brilliant. Really appreciate it.
And final thing, ladies and gentlemen, before I let you all go, resourcebase.com.au, download the prospectus, and why not get involved?
And give me a call if you want to really dig into some specifics. Always happy to talk.
Great. Okay. So if you want to reach out to Shannon, go to their website, get their contact number, give them a call. He'd be happy to hear from you. Thanks again, Shannon.
Thanks, Kerry. Appreciate it.